Yalankosi sengatheli imfundiso zezwi lakho ze-osevuse vinya nesoyako amadolo kwele lezwe makakobe bekwakosi sethezo gile meze loxelo tomolwa. Let us pray. Egameni kaThixo uyise, Thixo unyana, Thixo moya oyingcwele. Amen. Malusi obulungileyo, silapha phambi kobuso bakho Thixo olungileyo. Xa kuzawuqala Nkosi le nkonzo ye-memorial lecture Thixo olungileyo, sicela somandla ubukho bakho kule ndawo. Wena somandla ubatheleni somandla abantu bakho kwindawo ngendawo. Woze wabeka somandla kule program somandla yale mini Thixo olungileyo. Sicela umoya wakho oyingcwele Thixo olungileyo ube kule ndawo, wongame njengoThixo. Siyabuyela Nkosi ubathwele abantwana bakho apha endleleni somandla akabekho ngozi Thixo olungileyo. Wena somandla wazi konke, unguThixo othembekileyo. Siyakucela moya oyingcwele, umoya wakho oyingcwele ongame kule ndawo, ukuze xa kukhunjulwa Nkosi eliqhawe no-Justice Petse Thixo olungileyo unefelo kule ndawo moya oyingcwele. Othe Nkosi wamnika ubulumko nobuchule bokukhokhela Thixo olungileyo kwizigaba ngezigaba ezohlukeneyo, wathembeka njengoThixo. Moya oyingcwele simema wena Thixo olungileyo kule ndawo, ukuze somandla onke amagqwetha akule ndawo nejaji ezikule ndawo uzinike Nkosi ubuchule obummangalisayo, ngoba Nkosi ilizwe esimi kulo lixhomekeke kubo somandla ukugweba Nkosi imicimbi yeli lizwe. Simema wena njengoThixo ubafihle, ubathi uhamba umoya oyingcwele kuthi kwimfundo abanayo somandla esemgangathweni ufake Nkosi imfundo yakho yomoya oyingcwele. Siyakucela Thixo olungileyo emini nje somandla kusaqala Nkosi le program banguThixo yisenyana nomoya oyingcwele emnye uThixo ngoku nangona phakade. Amen. Uzwe kuyisena kunyana komoya oyingcwele kwavela kunjalo kusenjalo nanamhla kohlala kunjalo ngonapha kathe. Amen. Cela sihlale phansi. The Gospel according to Matthew 25, starting reading verse 23. The Gospel said Matthew chapter 25, start reading verse 23. His Lord said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over few things. I will make you rule over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord." Amen. Ngingwela nje ushiya lo mazwi ambalwa ukuthi ubuthembekile kwizinto ezimbalwa. ndikumisa kwizinto ezinkulu, ngena uchwayite enywebeni yenkosi. Akwaba uThixo nganisikelela sisebenze sonke ngokuthembeka, ngoba ukuthembeka uzala impumelelo enozwelelwano. Ukuthembeka akuqali emsebenzini, ukuthembeka kuqala ekhayeni. UThixo angahamba nani kule ndlela xa nikhumbula kule memorial lecture nakule farewell katata uJustice Petse okwangutata wam endimbukayo. Wakuthembeka uzala iziqhamo ezifaneleyo inguquko kaKristu. Ukuthembeka yinto enqabileyo nakubomi esibuphilayo. Kule nyanga nakwisuku layizolo likatata uNelson Mandela ebesikhumbula imini yakhe yokuzalwa, waba liqhawe ngento encinci, ukuthembeka. Once bawuthembeke uzala ilizwe, ibe lilizwe elihloniphekileyo, ibe lilizwe elinesidima esingumangaliso. Awuthembeki njengoba sithi uMateyu kwizinto ezinkulu, uthembeka kwizinto ezimbalwa. There are few things othembeka kuzo. Unyuka uThixo akubeke kwizigaba eziphezulu. Namhlanje abantu bakwizigaba ngezigaba kwiinkundla eziphezulu zelilizwe loMzantsi Afrika, bebeqala kwiinkundla ezisezantsi, kodwa baloyal, bathembeka. Sinqwenela elilizwe lethu sikulo namhlanje. Athi incwadi yeNumeri chapter 11, lihle ilizwe kodwa liyabatya abantu balo. Sikweli lizwe libonakala lilihle kodwa sidinga abantu abathembekileyo, abantu abafuna uThixo lonke ixesha. WenguThixo namhlanje xa ndinqwadadala apha kweli holo, apha eyunivesithi samhlanje sikuyo, simema wonke umntu athembeke ekhaya, athembeke emsebenzini wakhe, ukuze uThixo ambeke kwilevel ephezulu. Wawungathembeki kuvuza ne-information ebekumele into yoba ayiphumanga, uve kuthi emaphepheni kukho iindaba ezithumelezileyo ngenxa into yoba zikwiofisi enomntu ongathembekanga. Abantu abangamagqwetha neejaji zeli lizwe ngabantu bemfihlo. Sizokuthi uThixo ngokwakhe aligcine, alibeke kumgangatho we-integrity ukuze sithi kusetyenzwa kweli lizwe, ngoba kwawuxaka imicimbi noba zipolitician kodwa iyathatha imicimbi isiwa kwiijaji zeli lizwe. uThixo ke anisikelele, inkulu uThixo into aniphathisa yona ngoKristu Inkosi yethu. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Moba. Honorable guests, comrades, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to then call to the stage our choir, if the choir is here, to lead us into the singing of the national anthem. If the choir is not here, may I request all to rise as we sing the national anthem. Can I request anyone who is having a very powerful voice? I don't want to spoil the national anthem. There is a part that I really don't want to spoil. Thank you.
Allow me to also acknowledge Mr. Mnyambi, a Member of Parliament in our midst. Apologies for missing you earlier on. At this stage, I will call upon the chairperson of the Nadel Tata branch, Advocate Mdede, to come onto the podium and make a few remarks. Thank you.
I have noted that in the program, I have been given 5 minutes. I want to say, even if I was given 3 minutes, that was going to be suffice, because my duty is very, very easy. Let me take this opportunity to greet our distinguished guests present herein. My duty is just to welcome each and every one of you present here. I am very, very happy to see the number of people who have attended this occasion. You know, in African tradition, we judge the success of an occasion by the number of people who have attended that particular occasion. I am confident to say this occasion is a success, looking at the number of people who have attended it. We are very, very grateful as Mtata and Nadel branch. I welcome each and every one of you here. I'm not going to say I welcome so and so due to a jealous of time. You are all welcomed, all the Nadel branches. Please feel free, enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. I thought you were going to run a branch audit and credentials to check who is here. Without wasting time, may I call to the stage Professor Pishe to also welcome our guests in their midst. Thank you.
Program directors, allow me to acknowledge the guests here. Let me apologize up front. I will not call names in case I make a mistake and forget or do not call out other names. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing here on behalf of I want to mention them deliberately for a reason, which I will talk about later, of our Chancellor, Dr. N. Kobodo, our Chairperson of Council, Advocate T. Ngogaitobi, SC, our Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor R. Songa. I wish to acknowledge Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, because I'm proud to mention her, Deputy Chief Justice Maya, Constitutional Court. Thank you very much. Some of us missed ukuqinywa ngabazali, that's why I'm short. Constitutional Court justices from the Supreme Court of Appeal and High Court, the judges, President, Nadel Executive, Legal Fraternity, Executive Mayor of King Sabata Dalingebo Local Municipality, Walter Sisulu Executive Management Committee, present here, all the guests, I'm not going to mention because I don't know all of them, Walter Sisulu University staff members and students, especially students from the School of Law. Good morning. You are here today at Walter Sisulu University. Silibiza ukuba liziko likaXhamela. And we are proud to be associated with the 4 Eastern Cape legends. As you know that our province is the province of legends. We are a Walter Sisulu University situated in the Nelson Mandela Drive, and you are at the Nelson Mandela Drive campus. Where are we? In King Sabata Dalindyebo local municipality. That is in OR Tambo district municipality. Can you give Walter Sisulu University a give round of applause? Choosing our venue for what was termed earlier on as 3-in-1 ceremony is an honor to Walter Sisulu University. And choosing the date, a day just after Nelson Mandela's birthday, we are very, very proud of that. We are proud that you will be saying farewell to one of our own, Justice Petse. For those who do not know, Gunyana walapha eXokolweni lo, he may have left his roots, but we claim him as we claim many of you in this auditorium. I don't want to go there and say all those who once passed through this institution must stand up. I don't want to do that because I will embarrass those who did not come to this institution. If I was in a lecture, I was going to lecture. But now because we're in a memorial service, memorial lecture. You know, I used memorial services because people pass on a lot. You may have heard people standing to say a vote of thanks for something like and start saying they want to thank people who dug the grave. So don't be surprised if I come to that. I'm not going to explain what a memorial lecture is because everybody who's here knows what is a memorial lecture, but it is an honor. I want to say that Pius Langa is honored by the legal fraternity for the work he did uplifting the legal fraternity, which you know better than I because I'm a teacher, so I will not know that. We have been chosen for these activities. Justice Petse, we called you as one of the Eastern Cape trailblazers because we are proud. Ladies and gentlemen, Walter Sisulu University has new leadership. This new leadership, I have mentioned the two, the Chancellor, who is a product of this university. I have mentioned the Chairperson of Council, who we are proud of because he's also the product of this university. By the way, I'm also a product of this university. Our Vice Chancellor and Principal, the very first female principal of this university, is from Upper Kutsolo. Sincerest apology that she's not going to be here, but it is not the right time for us to announce the reason now, but we will announce it during the course of the day as to why she is not here. Professor Rushila noLundi Songa. You know what, those who were here, Advocate Ntsebeza and others, you may be seeing that there's a lot of improvement. The same venue we are in was not like this when you were here, to show that there's a lot of infrastructural improvement. I invite those who are students here to take a visit to the East Teaching Malls and see what has happened there, Mr. Mkesi, to go to Ipulo and KGP residences and see what has happened there. And quite a number. You may have seen Butterworth, those who have driven from that other side or from Tata to that other side, you may have seen that there's a lot that is going on there. And we are very excited. And you are welcome to Iziko Likakamela. And we hope that you will enjoy the entire day of your stay here. And we welcome you to come back. Come back for what now? We have students, and I'm saying this to the legal fraternity. Our students who have graduated, it's no longer a department, colleagues, it is a school of law. Our students who have graduated from our school of law, we have renamed it through restructuring. We have restructured the university, and we have consolidated our faculties. Our School of Law produces graduates, but unfortunately, some of them are without jobs. And I understand that even the lawyers who used to assist us and offer them internships, they can no longer do that. Please, as Walter Sisulu University, we appeal to you to assist in one way or another to make sure that we don't have our youth staying in home, because anything may be possible. You are welcome, and thank you.
Thank you so much, DVC, for your warm welcome to this institution. Iziko Likakamela, I like that. At this moment, I'd like to call upon the colleagues that will be delivering the messages of support. They are in this order: Advocate Kunju, SC, from the Tata Advocates. If he's not ready, I will then call upon Mr. Makangela, the chairperson of the Wild Coast Attorneys Association, to come to the podium. Oh, Advocate Kunju is here. You can... Mr. Makangela, you can also just come and sit close by so that you go immediately after him, as well as Mr. Mvunilela and the chair of the LSSA.
The justices of the Constitutional Court present here, the justices of the SCA present, the justices of the Eastern Cape, colleagues, and everyone who is here, I greet you this morning. Yes, I also note that I am given 5 minutes to talk about Justice Petse. I think there has to be some level of biasness on my part for only 2 reasons that intuitively come to mind. The first one is that at the age of 22 years, I was accepted by Justice Petse to do articles under him. And the second reason is that I come from Kokolweni, from the same locality where Justice Petse comes from. I am not suggesting that I will be too long but I'm simply highlighting that 5 minutes is indeed very little. I think the correct point to start, I am aware why am I called here to talk, to give the word of support. I am fully aware of that. But as I say, in my view, the correct point to start is when Justice Petse and I worked together. He accepted me in his office to do articles. And my first interaction with Justice Petse, or my perception about him, was that, hey, he is very strict, very strict. And indeed, I still hold that view, that Justice Petse is a very strict person. But my view is that as you get to work with him closely, you get a very nice person. Why do I say so? If you do your work properly, appropriately, you will be Justice Petse's friend. I have no doubt in my mind that the practitioners here in Namtata will agree that if you have done your work properly and you appear before Justice Petse, he will acknowledge that and say, good work. And indeed, you will get the order that you deserve. Justice Petse, in a manner of speaking, at the time I worked with you, I learned a lot. And I must mention that in your office, or at the time I worked as a candidate attorney, Justice Petse was so strict to an extent that you would not leave the office without the office knowing your whereabouts. Never. And you'll be allocated a number of minutes within which to execute that particular task. It was impossible for a person from that office to be floundering in the corridors of the magistrate's court or being in a floric of his own. That did not happen at all. And that is how Justice Petse managed his office. And in fact, it became clear that it is his nature when he also successfully managed the High Court. And I may mention, and I suppose most speakers will bear me out, Justice Petse, that when you left the Mthatha High Court, I'm now talking as an association located in Mthatha, we were not very happy, to an extent that some of us will remember that when there was a post of Justice Sangoni, when Justice Sangoni was about to retire, there was a discussion that we need Justice Petse back because we knew how he handled our court. Our court was functioning properly and efficiently. As I said, Justice Petse, I personally learned a lot from you. And I remember that at the time I was a candidate attorney, especially when I was a bit matured, because you see, when you are still new, you would write letters, go show him, and then he would approve a letter. There will be no letter, there will be no process, let me say so, that would leave his office without him seeing virtually everything. Email, letter, I saw in other firms of attorneys where they would just write letters without them being approved by the principal. That was very alien in Justice Petse's offices. He would then, as I say, give you some task intuitively coming to mind, for instance, are two cases when one deals with condonation, Melane versus Santam. He would say this matter has to do with condonation. Please research law. The case that I would remember at that stage, which is still applicable today, and it makes good law anyway, is Santam. On summary judgment, he would, of course, Maharaj versus Barclays Bank, he would say, please look for those authorities. One would quickly go look for those authorities and find them. Then we will go argue in court. Just one joke now that I'll never forget, Justice Petse. You may have forgotten about this. The motion court days in Amtata were on Thursdays. Then we go to motion court with Justice Petse. And I enjoyed going to court at the time I was a candidate attorney because, you see, it was a good experience. Then go to court on a Thursday, and he argues, I think it was a summary judgment, and opposed staff. Then there were other colleagues of his, Justice Benenge, Justice Silwa were there. They would then talk. And Justice Petse was nice, smiling, everything fine. Then, and I know how strict he is. Then we have finished our business at the High Court. We go home, go to the office. And again, down there at the office, he meets Miss Pantwa. I can't remember. Yes, Miss Pantwa, who used to operate down the business. Can't remember the bookshop that was there. Easy Reach, I think it was Easy Reach Stationery. Then they talk. Again, Justice Petse is nice, smiling, everything is fine. Go to the office. Few minutes after I had sat on my chair, I received a call. He would obviously call you directly. And then I pick up, come, Dada. Then I go to Justice Petse. And apparently there is a query that was on his desk. Then he is asking me about this query, and he has completely changed. That's what made me to fail to understand this principle of mine. He has completely changed. Then I looked at him, and I thought, is he serious? You were just smiling on our way from court, and everything was fine. And even the issue that he's raising with me, it's not a serious issue. Then I looked at him. Unfortunately, I couldn't resist a laugh. I laughed. He then laughed back and said, Hamba, go away. Then I saw that, hey, Justice Petse, in reality, he is able to change himself, sort of, condition himself for a particular situation. So he was very strict, as I say, but he was a very nice person. Justice Petse, we, in a manner of speaking, as the Society of Mthatha Bar, we say, farewell. You have done a sterling work. We do appreciate what Nadel has done for you and for the profession at large. We, however, agree that we will miss you. 1. 2, we are aware, though, that you have written a lot of judgment. And I have no doubt in my mind that your teachings will be seen on those judgments. Your understanding of law and the application of law will be seen in those judgments. The person who you are and where you come from will be seen from those judgments. Nonetheless, even though you are leaving us, we say you have left us a legacy. We do indicate also, Justice Petse, that as and when there is a need for you to assist our bar in particular, because I'm talking about our local bar, please avail yourself. So, given the limited time, Justice Petse, I have been given, but I must indicate that for what it is worth, Justice Petse, that there's a Mr. Shete at the High Court. It's another small joke. Mr. Shete was at the reception, sorry, not at the front office of the High Court. And then as an attorney, I would then go there, issue papers, sometimes issue application for admission of advocates. Then at some point I say, Mr. Shete, it's Abongile, his name is Abongile. Abongile, it's application. And then Abongile would say, have you complied with Rule 3? Then I say, is that your business, Abongile? Yours is to issue these papers, whether I've complied with Rule 3 or not. It's none. The court will tell me. Then you say, but Justice Petse will ask us. Then we ended up calling him Rule 3. So I called Mr. Abongile, I think he's the Secretary of Justice Dawood. I call him Rule 3 since then. So those are the teachings, Justice Petse, that have inculcated in some of our people here in Mthatha, such that Justice Petse, such that Abongile Justice Petse now has a law degree. He has passed a law degree. So, in short, farewell Nzopha, farewell Seleba, farewell Makakana, Yani. Thanks.
Thank you. Can I then call to the stage Mr. Makangela?
I don't know whether I should start bragging as well. Well, unfortunately, Brady, I'm going to claim you as well. Those who are coming from Ngobo would know that you can't reach Egala without passing Ngobo. So as well, Brady is coming from Ngobo. So is out of 11 judges at the Constitutional Court, Ngobo decided to send its flower as well. Justice Chikwi, maybe you don't know her. Fortunately, I have the power because I'm here. I will ask the judge to stand up and wave at you now. No, that is not the end. You heard them talking about the judge, the president of KwaZulu-Natal Division. Unfortunately, she's on her way. She was in Parliament yesterday. It's Judge, well, at home we call her Sis Toba, but she's Justice Poyodlwat. She's also from Ngobo as well. I think because I'm given 5 minutes, I'm left with a few minutes now. Let me just stop there. Because even Walter Sisulu is from Ngobo. To the Deputy Chief Justice, Justice Maya Umakhade, as the leader of the Deputy Leader of the Judiciary, justices from the Supreme Court of Appeal, Judge Presidents present here. I think I must just say all protocol must be observed, as well as the host, Professor Songa, and the team of the university. When the program director told us here, he mentioned that there are about 3 segments of this program. It's this and there's a lecture. But let me just address one line about the late Chief Justice Pius Langa. We know that Justice Langa is credited for, amongst others, his role in establishing the Bangalore Principles of Judicial Conduct. The 6 core values of it being the following: One, independence, impartiality, integrity, propriety, equality, competence, and diligence. Those are what carries a professional in the legal space. So as the Wild Coast Attorneys Association, we join hands in congratulating Nadel for hosting this historic event. In our different responsibilities and duties, may we also seek to uphold these values that he believed in. You can imagine being the first Black Chief Justice of a young democracy. But we know that he did set the bar so high, Justice Langa. That is why Nadel continues to celebrate him. I can imagine as well, I don't know what it takes for a man to have what is called a foresight. That's why today we have the president, some of his writings at the time, they are still relevant even to date. The concept of what you call transformative constitutionalism, you find it in his writings. The second part is to deal with in this last minute, Petse. Well, the only thing we can say is the attorneys that you will enjoy your retirement with us. We know that even during your recess at the SCA, you only leave Bloemfontein, but you come to the Mthatha High Court. So I don't know what is the recess. Maybe it's the recess at the Free State, but you are busy here at the High Court. So you will not vanish. We need you. Actually, you are now wearing a new cap. You will be a teacher, teaching us as young lawyers, because I'm still young as well. So we'll continue to draw wisdom from that well, and we'll keep on knocking at that door. From what Advocate Kundu said, everyone knows that Justice Petse is a strictler. A rule is a rule. It does not bend, unfortunately. If the court starts at 9:30, the first matter is called at 9:28, so that the judge must be addressed at 9:30. It is not negotiable. When you get through that door, your matter is removed. As the law requires, you have to file an explanatory affidavit. Why were you absent when your matter was called? So we know that that is a strictler. Perhaps we really need to go back there, we learn, because if you look at that, it's only that generation that has managed to thrive in that space. All that generation is the one that is in the bench now. Justice is the Concord, JP, all judges in this court are the people who lived by those rules. We want to be like you. So when we invite you, it is because we want to produce other Justice Petses, and you'll find them. They are sitting here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade Makangela. May I call to the stage the BLA Secretary General? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, President of Nadel, Comrade Mvuso Nyotesi. Before I proceed, I must confirm that I'm not the president of the BLA. My name is Chris Mamatuncha. I'm the Secretary General of the association. I speak here on behalf of the president. The Secretary General of Nadel, Comrade Nolita Jali, members of the NEC of Nadel, the justices of the Constitutional Court present here. I won't mention all their names, they've been mentioned enough. Judges of the Supreme Court of Appeals, judges of our high courts present here. I, at this stage, want to recognize our former Deputy President of the BLA, Judge Jolwana J. former Deputy President of our beautiful organization. It is good to see you, Judge. And I must also say that we miss you. Maybe you must come back. It is fashionable these days to come back. Senior council present here, all senior council present here, the membership of Nadel in their entirety, President of the LSSA, Ms. Gooden, the delegation of the BLA from the National Executive Committee, led by former President Maswazi, Treasurer General, Comrade Fezeka Mahano, Comrade Nonoza Potelwa, and Comrade Mzwake Mkwanas, the chairperson of the Eastern Cape, of the BLA, Comrade Zoli Lengeza, program directors. It is my singular honor to stand here on behalf of our organization, the BLA. I stand here on behalf of our president, Comrade Nkosana Mvunjela, who is currently attending a National Bar Association convention in Nevada in the United States. We have also accepted this invitation on behalf of our members, on whose mandate we stand on this platform. On the occasion of the annual Pius Langa Memorial Lecture, we wish to restate our stance of unity between Nadel and the BLA, as reflected in our historical meeting held in May in Cape Town Park. The struggle for total transformation of the profession and the judiciary in particular dictates that Nadel and the BLA stand together. Our historical mission is more relevant today than ever before. We are honored to stand alongside you in this journey. We believe that together we can make a meaningful difference and help create a more just and equitable legal system in our beautiful republic. We wish you well in your fully packed program and undertake to be here until the end. I am limited by 5 minutes. Your president knows that I could have gone on for more than an hour. But thank you very much for inviting the BLA, and we are here with you until the end. Thank you very much. Enkos.
Thank you, SG. At this juncture, I'll call the LSA President, Ms. Anthony Gooden, to give her message of support.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and distinguished guests, there is so many important people in this room and all protocols observed. It is such an honor to be delivering this message of support during this Pius Langa Memorial Lecture. And this theme of the lecture this year is Evolving Justice, the Past, the Present, and the Future of Democracy. The theme is most befitting of this man of justice, Pius Langa. It encapsulates the stature of the man that we've come to honor today. And today we gather to reflect on the profound journey of justice and democracy in South Africa. Our nation's history is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the relentless pursuit of equality and freedom. As we explore the evolution of justice in our beloved country, we must honor the past, we need to critically examine the present, and we need to envision a future where democracy will thrive for all. As we know, South Africa's history is marked by a struggle against oppression and injustice, and in the dark era of apartheid, characterized by systemic racial segregation and discrimination, this remains a painful chapter in our collective memory. During these years, Black South Africans were denied basic human rights, and state machinery was used to perpetuate inequality. However, the spirit of resistance and the dream of a just society has never, ever wavered. And brave men and women such as Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, and countless unnamed heroes have stood up against tyranny. They have endured unimaginable hardships, yet their resolve has only strengthened. The liberation movements, the protests, and international solidarity have eventually led to the dismantlement of apartheid. We all realize that the year 1994 marked a turning point in our history with the first democratic elections. It was a triumph of justice and a testament of the power of the human spirit. The birth of a new South Africa has brought hope and the promise of a society where all individuals, regardless of race, could live with dignity and equality. Today, South Africa remains a vibrant democracy with a robust legal framework that enshrines human rights and justice. The Constitution of South Africa is one of the most progressive in the world. It guarantees the rights of all citizens and provides mechanisms for redress and accountability. However, we will all agree that our journey is far from complete. The legacy of apartheid continues to cast a very long shadow over our society. We have economic disparities, social inequalities, and racial tensions persist. There's a high level of crime within our country, and corruption undermines public trust in institutions meant to protect and serve the people. But we still see progress. The judiciary remains independent, often serving as a beacon of hope for those seeking justice. Civil society organizations play a crucial role in holding the government accountable, and we advocate for the rights of marginalized communities. The ongoing efforts to address land reform, to improve education and promote economic inclusions are steps towards fulfilling the promise of our democracy. As we look to the future, the task before us is clear. We need to build a just and equitable society for all of South Africa, and this will require a collective effort driven by a commitment to the principles of democracy, justice, and human dignity. Firstly, we must continue to strengthen our institutions. An independent judiciary, a transparent government, and a free press are all essential pillars of a thriving democracy. We need to safeguard these institutions against any attempts to undermine their integrity. Secondly, we need to address economic inequality, and that is paramount. True justice cannot be achieved if large segments of our population remain trapped in poverty. This calls for policies that must promote inclusive economic growth, create jobs, and provide access to quality education and healthcare. Thirdly, we must foster a culture of accountability and ethical leadership. Corruption erodes public trust and hampers development. We need our leaders who are committed to serving the people and to uphold the values of our Constitution. Lastly, we must embrace our diversity as a strength. South Africa is a nation of many cultures, languages, and traditions, and by promoting social cohesion and mutual respect, we can build a society where everyone feels valued and where everyone feels included. In conclusion, the journey of justice and democracy in South Africa is an ongoing process. The past has taught us that the value of freedom and the cost of oppression. The present challenges us to uphold the gains that we have made and to address the inequalities that persist. The future beckons us to build a society where justice mustn't just be a dream, it must be a reality for everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, let us honor the sacrifices of those who came before us. We need to work tirelessly to overcome the challenges of today. We need to commit ourselves to creating a brighter, more just future for the generations to come. And together we believe at the LSSA that we can continue to evolve and strengthen our democracy and ensure that South Africa remains a beacon of hope and justice in the world. I wish Nadel every success for an excellent lecture for today, and thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call to the stage the following members? Comrade Makangela, Comrade Chris, Comrade Kunju SC, to receive your gifts. Yes, Comrade Chris from BLASG. We are actually bound by the non-disclosure. I was tempted to make a disclosure on the contents of the gift. Without wasting any more of our time, we're really running out of time. Allow me to call to the stage Umongameli, President Mvuso Nochesi. Your trusted DP is calling you to the stage. He's not going to contest you.
Lomhla sibuyayo, lomhla sibuyayo, lomhla sibuyayo, kothula tu, lomhla sibuyayo, lomhla kothula. I mean, last night we had a meeting. Last night we had a meeting. Myself, King Bweleka Dalingebo, King Damasa, King Matiwan of Amampondomins. We met at Bumbana. I know they will be joining us in the afternoon. The meeting was about certain reflections. Among them, as I listened to King Dalingebo, because he was talking about how many cattle or cows that were sent to Bloemfontein on the occasion of the formation of African National Congress. King Matiwana, the grandson of King Mhlonhlo, was reflecting on how it was so important for the unity of the people that they gathered. In fact, by the way, I can tell you, the cows that were sent from Bumbane, Great Place, to Bloemfontein to celebrate and cement a date of black people, of the progressive. There were 120 were coming there. It was a contribution not to the African National Congress. It was a contribution to the cause of the people. What King Matiwana tells me is that if you go to Kumbo, somewhere you cross, there is a chief lieutenant of Amahlo. They met there to consolidate and think and reflect on what we call the way forward of the black people. And then that culminated in the formation of what today all of us jealously guard, cry as it crumbles on the way, so-called, in fact, what it is, the African National Congress. They were lawyers then. They were lawyers. And the person who was captain the African National Congress, I was listening to Umfundisi Lubevula, that Umfundisi. It was exactly on the theme of what you were saying. That was a theme that guided through the discussions that concluded on a point that the natives must fashion their own. I stand here not to say too much today. I stand here to read to us the statement of Nadel. The statement, and I'm going to read, I'm very careful, because the people who were sitting in that room where the statement I'm going to read were there. All the leaders Prati became the secretary. Was it the secretary general? It was the first meeting secretary of the PLA. The first election of Nadel. The Africans have mobilized themselves. They won. They remove others. The following year, Pradi was there. They were outnumbered. And they said, no, we are going back to BLA now, we can't accept this. But Pius, the one that we are going to have, we are going to listen to people talk about tonight. He said no. But all those lawyers, they were gathering, they formed Nadel for simply two reasons. There were only two. That is the statement of Nadel. All the discussion from today, from this moment, will be about two things. The first, that is the reason of Nadel, was to dismantle apartheid with its system. That's the first reason. And how to do that as lawyers, they were to convert court cases into mobilization stages. That is, into mobilization campaigns. Whenever there's a case of Nadel people, the lawyers will use that as a mobilization. The second, this is what I think this generation is lacking or is yet to understand, was to construct a new order. A new order founded on the principles, that is, on the principles of, as defined in the Freedom Charter. That's it. That is the statement of Nadel. And then in that process, we have to choose people. Who goes where, who doesn't go where. We never accepted, Nadel choose. Here, you don't say, you can only volunteer. The organization of Nadel is for volunteers, for work. It's an organization of volunteers. Not devotedly. No, we don't have that, unfortunately. This is an organization. We have to choose people who must implement this vision. This vision, not defined only by Justice Pius Langa, defined by Advocate Mr. Nsabezade, defined by Mr. Chris Coventer here, defined by Butim Lungis, at least 2 things out. Butim Lungis Koala, now, defined by Justice Desai. That's what they define. Unfortunately, they are here to witness that. Now, what do I mean when I say we choose people? It is on those bases that Pius Langa didn't go around and say, nominate me to be judge. It was a discussion of the members of Nadel that said, Pius, we are going to go to the Constitutional Court. She refused. We said, Mhlegazi, are you refusing the mandate of this organization? She went there. It was the same Nadel that says, Mr. Dala Oma, you are not going to be a judge, you are not going to decide. You are going to be the Minister of Justice. He said, no, what if Mandela doesn't appoint? He said, no, Nadel has spoken. Nadel is bigger than Mandela. Nadel is bigger than Mandela. All what we have to do is to toe the line. That's why he became the Minister of Justice. That was an agreement of Nadel. Look, as I come close, because if you wanted these stories, they will tell you a lot. I can give you 2 people here sitting. In fact, all these judges, in fact, all of them, all. The judges that are here, I'm not talking about those who are not here. All that are here, you can ask them each, one by one. Who went around and said, nominate me, I want? No. Nadel decide. Even Ubukola, where he wanted to, as an attorney, he wanted to change and then become an advocate and what, and he had a lucrative office all correspondent, and the West that year, unfortunately I was present. And there was this meeting. I was coming from Kumbu. I met Judge Somyalo. I said, hey, my son, ingathi ukhona abantu abastrong apha. Angubani lo? Mlumkele nakhe. There were people here, players. Mr. Justice Jafta, Mr. Mbuyiseri Langa, Mr. Mbenenge. They were consulted to say, no, we want that man, he must be judged. He said, what aim us? This is a decision. He has never go to any person to say, nominate. That's why I think, not me, the members of Nadel organize themselves in this fashion. It's simply because you listen to that call. And there is, in Nadel, there is a condition. You don't become a judge nominated by Nadel when there's no condition. There's a condition. Because you come from the school of thought. You come from the school of an organization. That's one, is stand for human rights. Two, is going to fight for access to justice. Three, it is a vehicle of service delivery. Here in Nadel, one of the conditions, judgments must be delivered. He worked here in Mthatha. If you listen to Judge Petse Livik, that is on Friday, I can guarantee you, in the next, even if matters were 6, within the next 3 months, all your judgments are there. This thing of saying judgment must be delivered within 3 months, unfortunately, I could have opposed it. That was a decision of Nadel. It was us that find true to that act. So, if we are going there, we are in Nadel, it means if you don't deliver judgment within 3 months, first resign as Nadel, because you betray yourself, you're a liar. He never done that. That's why Nadel, I think, in fact, I've heard from them, that's why they decided to have this day. And thank you, my brother, as they would say. Then, there is a second part of this. The second part, it relates to the country as we see things. And I was so worried. I remember what my grandmother used to call us, and then kutokwenza inso, kutapaya, bantwana bam, tata, izani kum, siyoyika, noyika ntoni, ihleli phi, yenza ntoni, itya ntoni, ilumela ngantoni. How? We are here, imamena, ingcuka, zihlele emnyango, abantwana bafuna uba. Mr. Petse, what you did, you have outdone yourself. You did not do yourself anything better than this organization. These values that I see, this was not written by me, that's why I can't read it. It says, this is what you did. You emphasize the importance of justice. You emphasize the question of integrity. You confirm to the rich and poor. You confirm to the have and have-nots that we want. This is one, and as you read in the Nadel Constitution, we envision a society that will be based on equality, modern justice. As I summarize and conclude, I was coming from this thing we talk right about that book, the length. We even sent Commissioner Mbagwani, you remember, when we wanted to amend Section 35, we did formulate the section, how it should be read. Much as Ngaitobi doesn't agree with this, but Nadel members, they said that team was led by the former president of Nadel, who's a judge in the Constitutional Court, that is Malindi. Of course, all president of Nadel, except me, but all of them, they're very clever. Very. Because that's why you see, if you can see in that order, you can see Mr. Pius Langa. I've listened to you say the principle of like, and there's all those things that was coming from Nadel. And then once a judgment is good, we check who's right. Oh, it's a Nadel. Say, no, this is a Nadel judgment. Once it's bad, we said, no, this judgment. No, it's that judge. It's that judgment. But once your judgment is bad, it's yours. Once it's good, it's Nadel. Now, that's why you see Dula Omar became the Minister of Justice. I was laughing as we see Deputy President about this thing of the LSSA president. It was formed, it was conceived by this organization. Mr. Mlungisi Petse was there in that meeting at Sunnyside, where Chris, we will talk about that. It was considered the GNU. I'm not sure what is going to happen in Gauteng, but this thing of the GNU, but we did, practical GNU. That is the society, that's why PLA Nadel. But we agreed to that formulation. It was formed by Chris, Mr. Tumisan Tebes there, and Mr. Kola, but he doesn't like to be a forward. They like to be forward. Those two, that is Chris here and Mr. Tumisan Tebes. No, when they formed that and say they must be 50-50, we say we want it because we can see if even PLA and Nadel combined could not help. That's why they have to think and then form in that way. And even in this LPC, when they, we can see, but hey, we cannot be part. That Pokwana here was in Cape Town, were challenged. She wrote a Nadel judgment, but not her judgment. And that is the judgment that is the very judgment that culminated to the current LPC. That's a contribution that this organization has done. But when we go to court, hey, they ask a lot of questions from us. Please now stop that, ask others. We are so excited, extremely. If it was for me, I would speak and everyone would speak. You have done it. We can't describe. That's why. And I want to give you the short story. He was still he was in Athens. And when we come, there was a generation. Before, there is Sangoni, Tumisan Sabes, after that, Chris Podlan, somewhere there. And when you come, and then you go to a magistrate court, in that magistrate court, there's a magistrate, Islamin, whoever it is. He is the opponent. Maybe Judge Petse or Chris say, hey, how was Islamin? The wood kabile kdala kunjani? Hey, ukulada. Utlab. Select by la makwekwe nje kusazwa Jewish. But the judgment will be exactly what it could have been, even if they say, if we are right, we are right. That's a legacy that we are inheriting. That's why Justice Petse, as we are going to retire, there is an organization in Nadel called, what's this? Is the one that does this, an advocate for human rights. Your opponent is going to be Judge Krichler. You will be employed here. You are employed here. You will be leading, you will be heading our litigation section. We have been listening to Judge Krichler with his people, and we say, good Judge Krichler. But now he has a match. This is where we are coming. And that is what this day was about. It was not going to be, and then he is saying, no, I'm going to consult with my wife. Unfortunately, I've heard Mr. Makada talking about Nobo and everything. Unfortunately, Mr. Kundlu, who Judge Petse has two sides. It's Kogolweni and Kum. He is a subject of His Majesty, King Zolozu Komatiwan. That's why the king would be handing your brief. That's why there was that consultation of the kings, because you are a subject of Amampondomise. And Amampondomise, as you can see, they almost, in fact, everybody here, Limpondomise, even judgment, even the very judge that you like, that Mr. Madam, is Mpondomise, but he say, Dingohlubi mna, Mpondomise. So people enjoy yourself. The statement of Nadel was that. The statement of today is nothing else to, we don't celebrate what we call black excellence. We don't have black excellence. We have a Nadel confirming its own sons who just implement what we are reading. Go and read the Constitution of Nadel. Don't congratulate Justice Petse. Congratulate Nadel that wrote those founding principles. That is why Mr. Justice Jolwana, please and go and listen to his interviews, Justice Popon, or to Justice Kupaliwe, must back receive. But hey, where were you working? I was working, I was a church master, I was a church choir, and this. But Jolwana doesn't write anything of those. Chief Justice Mkwani, no, Mr. Jolwana, I know you. Why you didn't tell us that you are deputy president? He said, if it means to be a judge, I must write that I was deputy president of PLA. I'd rather not stand. Why so? I would be those members who elected me to the position of PA. Wow, what a statement. As a result, I can say it because there's so many years now, I'm not, even if I will answer, I was there in that meeting. After that statement, every board with a question, forget the question. And then, gentlemen, how did we get in here? We are not in this place because of us being clever. It is because of those people who saw something from us. I think, Judge Petse, when you sleep today, we confirm one thing. This is what, when you say, forget about everything, we can say everything, we can give you cows, we can give you cars, we can give anything. But that statement of Mr. Jolwana, Justice Jolwana, is what today is here. And Tina, thank you for accepting the organization. I know he wanted to refuse. We call a meeting as still and said, you can't refuse. This is not there. Tina, every member, I mean, the current justices were Amsterdam, the current, all these justices were here. They were sent by Nadel, not to rule for Nadel, to rule according to the principles that are written in that constitution. If any of them is not within that constitution, you must know it was a mistake. People, thank you. You must have a great day.
Trust Jola for speaking from the cuff. I will acknowledge the judge's president's Toba Poyulwat, sorry for using the first name, and Judge President Mphahlele for joining us. At this stage, we will skip the choir due to time constraints. I will call Comrade Raj, where are you, to introduce our speaker, Krish. Thank you.
Comrade Makangela, where are you? Stand up. Is he here? Makangela, where are you? I would never dare ask my judge president to stand up and wave. Distinguished guests, colleagues and friends, I bring warm greetings from the Durban branch. As you can see, I'm somewhat overawed by the occasion. My judge president has just come in, and before she came, Comrade Makangela was claiming you as one of his. So I want to tell him very firmly, you are one of ours. We have moved. There are very, very many distinguished guests here, and I'm so happy that the program directors have recognized all of you. And if I recognize all of you again, it would take more than the half an hour that I've been allocated. It's 5 minutes now, I know, right? So I am humbled, really, and honored to be addressing you and introducing Krish. And in the program, the program that was given to me, he was just referred to as Krish. So I think everybody universally knows him. But they didn't know me, so they put Mr. Raj Godal there. So everybody doesn't know who I am. On the matter that we are here today, Justice Pius Langa, we from Durban, and I think a lot of us here in the audience have had the privilege of knowing him very, very well. And we've had the privilege of actually interacting with him from a Nadel perspective. As many of you would know, he was one of the founder members of Nadel. Krish is here, another founder member, Justice Judge Sirat Desai, and I know Dumisa and Sebeza was there as well. So very many distinguished persons were present when Nadel was founded. And my impression of, and I was also fortunate and honored to have acted for the Langa family from time to time. My impression of Justice Langa, he was a very calm, measured, incisive, brilliant, compassionate human being. In other words, he had all the attributes, in my view, that a judicial officer should have. And I might be straying a little bit outside my mandate today, but I wonder what he would say at this point in time. And I feel that the judiciary is under attack as it's never been before, that Stalingrad tactics have been applied like it's never been before. And what would he be saying about what's happening today? Now, turning to Krish, it's one of the most difficult tasks, Krish, to introduce you. I think a lot of people will have strong opinions about Krish. But I know Krish for many, many years now. For over 50 years, Krish, you've been, I think, a mentor to some of us, and all of us. Krish has been an activist, a political activist, all his life. Time doesn't permit me to go into all the stuff that we did those days, Krish, your acting skills. Yeah. No, I understand. No, but I'm introducing you now. Right? I don't think Pius was acting like you. But needless to say, Christian, Pius, and all of us, we interacted together. So one of the saddest things in my life, I think, as far as Pius is concerned, I bought a house about 5 minutes from where I lived, and we interacted quite often. And he said when he retired, he was going to throw his life and soul into the Nadel branch. And we've never had that benefit of him there. And I think we really are bereft of that experience that he had. But turning back to Krish now again. Krish is what I would say is a truth teller, speaking truth to power. He says a lot of things which are uncomfortable, makes us, a lot of us, especially those in power, uncomfortable. And I distinctly recollect, and he's not going to be happy with me reminding him, at some LSSA meeting in Johannesburg, he shouted out, "We are captured, we are captured." And it was a forerunner of a whole lot of things that were happening after that. He wasn't a very popular chappie then. From a professional perspective, Krish has been active in the professional affairs here. Just a few of the roles that he has played. He was president of the LSSA, as our JP was. He chairs the ethics committee. He's a member of the standing committee of legal education. He was a former member of the LPC. On an international level, he's represented Nadel in matters relating to Sri Lankan massacres, to Palestinian atrocities, the Cuban Five, etc. So Krish is a very, he's an activist. He's somebody I think that we all aspire to be. Comrade Krish, I hope I haven't made it too heavy for you for your speech. You've always challenged us, and I think, Comrade Krish, you must continue challenging us. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Raju. You allowed me some opportunity to reduce my talk about Pius, and but I appreciate your kind words. I hope it hasn't created more difficulties for me in dealing with this memorial lecture. I must say at the outset, I am not a lecturer, I'm not an academic, and I don't have that gravitas to do research like my comrade Makangela, who talked about the Bangalore principles, and to pick about, through the documentation of Pius's life, all the great legal and other principles that he espoused and lived up to. So I am wanting to just give you a talk today about Pius's life as I remember it and some of the things we shared. But I must say that listening to our President Nochesi, Mbuso Slagazi, you are a brave man. You called me a month ago and you said I must speak, and I never heard from you again. That's you, Mslagazi. You come and go, but like you said today, when you issue an order, you just got to follow it. And this is where you are different from all the other presidents. Other presidents of Nadel, we argued, we debated, and sometimes we didn't move things forward. But when you set your mind to something, you get it done. So you're a brave person because you don't know what I'm going to say, and I might just damage your good reputation as well. But let me greet everybody here, all our distinguished guests, our Deputy Chief Justice. There was such a long list here when I listened to program directors. Thank you very much. You put up a long list, but you made it a little easier. I must acknowledge the members of the Pius Langa family here. And I hope that you would go away with more fond memories of be it your dad or uncle or relative of a great man. So I also want to just acknowledge people that I know, acknowledge all the judges of the Constitutional Court who are here, the judges president, my old friend, the JP of KZN, Toba, Poyo, Duarte. I remember not seeing her for many years after she became a JP, and she heard my name at the LSSA AGM about 3 months ago being mentioned in relation to some resolution that I was seconding in relation to finance. Now, I always support finance, clean governance, and ensure that no money is stolen. So when I seconded the finances of the LSSA, they're always perfect. They are clean. The late Tony Pillay, who passed away, we acknowledge him even today. And he ensured that the finances of the Law Society of South Africa were in order. So when I seconded it, our JP came to speak shortly thereafter. And she said, well, you know, I heard the name of Ashwin Trikamji, who was the finance person in charge of the LSSA's finances as an audit person. And I heard Krish Govender, and she said, well, you know, I don't know how this phrase works, but she said, you know, the more things, the more we try to change things, the more they stay the same. Because she heard my name after so many years again. So it's a sign that some of us still have to hang around, stay alive, and try to keep the peace and to try to get things as much as possible. We are not going to give up on the struggle to ensure that we have clean governance and good governance everywhere, despite the problems that we face everywhere. And especially in the way that our country has been going. And if our country was on track for the past 10 or 12 or 15 years, many of us would have been doing other things, like maybe playing golf and reading books in our old age. But the way things are going and the way the future looks, we will not give up on the struggle. And we will die with our boots on. So if we say the more the things look the same or they are still remaining the same, well, it is a matter of that. Aluta, continua, and we still are grappling with the dreams that we had in 1994 and which we believe will have to be realized in a matter of time. I also just want to recognize also our judges in the various divisions of the High Court, judges, presidents, all the senior magistrates, my good friend Barry Madolo, who is the DPP of this province. He was amongst us as the founders of Nadel. We had many chats this morning. And Barry, I believe, when we talked about the way forward and the future of our democracy would demand that the office of the NDPP be separated from the Department of Justice. It has got to stand alone. It has to be independent for the strengthening of our rule of law and the separation of powers. So, Barry, that one is for you. And the person also who inspired some of those thoughts and set a good example was our comrade Vusi Pikoli. I don't know if he's here today, but Comrade Vusi Pikoli hails from this province, the province of legends, without a doubt. And he was a real great National Director of Public Prosecutions. And he lost his job because he stood up for being an independent, a strong, fearless fighter for justice, and upholding the best traditions of the integrity of that office of the NDPP. And he was the last of them. And that tells you the direction in which our country has moved slowly, but surely in a difficult way. And I think a lot of what he said about his experience thereafter, it's in his book called The Second Initiation. And I know initiation in this province is also a very controversial issue. And I mean it. And Mhlagazi, you have to do some things about that. There should never be a single young man dying. Never. This should never be allowed. And I believe it should be easy to stop it. It's going on year after year, and we are a powerful democracy. Despite our other problems, we are one of the best democracies in the world. Our constitution is the best. And I'm telling you this without fear or favor or any prejudice. It comes from looking at some of the struggles going on in the other parts of the world. And even if you look at one of the worst democracies at the moment in the way they've abused their democracy, the United States of America. So they have usurped the independence of the Supreme Court. They have 9 judges, 6 of whom are just completely in the hands of the political parties and other foreign forces that put billions into the US electoral system. So our country can do a lot of easy things. You know, Mhlagazi, you as Nadel president, you issue a lot of directions, even to judges, and you are setting them up to do a million things in the name of Nadel. So I'm going to challenge you to set up a system where if we had to ask, say in the month of January, that every parent who was going to send their child for initiation or son in that year should be forced to register that into a system where you would know by whether it's June or July or May when that process starts, that everybody is named and listed. And there has to be a process by which there has to be a monitoring of their health and safety. They must have access and protection. And when they come out of that process, there would be a database, and there would be a proper, complete checking, and there would be a very negligible way of accidents taking place. There has to be a team of doctors available. They should be always on standby. And even if it means getting lawyers to be community workers from Nadel to ensure the success of that process, we should be doing it. So that's just a small thing that I can say in relation to the future. I want to talk about Comrade Pius. And as a former Chief Justice of our country, and in paying tribute, I would like to just say that I had to cut short a lot of speech because of time constraints, but we are paying tribute to the memory of a giant of a lawyer and a judge. And I also want to locate that tribute, in the context of our history and the politics of our country and even the world. So just to touch on how Comrade Pius came into our lives. He had left, if I'm not, and I'm open to correction, he was a magistrate in Bloemfontein, or in the Orange Free State, as it was called those days. And it was difficult times where jobs were hard to come by. He was obviously a very hardworking lawyer or law student who moved into the ranks of becoming a magistrate then. But one of the last acts that he performed was he refused bail to a racist farmer who had abused and assaulted a black worker. And in those days, in that free state, if you did such a thing, you were asking for big trouble. But I remember the story that he left on a Friday, refused bail. That man had to spend what you would never believe was possible in those dark days of apartheid and racism, a few days maybe in jail, or maybe his brothers got him out after a few hours. But he got a taste of what justice could be like in the hands of a soft-spoken, kind man, as Raj mentioned, but who had nerves of steel and was a man of courage. And when Pius then came away to Durban during the late 60s, when he came to Durban, but during the late 60s, Durban was a city that was facing a lot of political depression. It was battling to recover from the weight of the banning of the ANC, the SACP, and other organizations, the imprisonment of our leaders on Robben Island. Many other leaders were driven to exile. A few remained in the underground, and many were also banned. You know, I don't know the younger people whether they knew the meaning of what a banning order was, but it was a harsh, restrictive process. And I won't want to go too much into that, but we need to talk about these things sometime, about what banning orders were. Comrade Pius would have found Durban's society full of tension. There were spies everywhere in those days. Your neighbors were suspicious of everybody else. There were informers. People lived under a cloud of silence, out of fear. And it was a difficult period in South Africa, all over. There were sparks that were taking place towards the end of the 60s, and a newborn generation of frustrated students started some fires of resistance at the bush colleges, as we call them. That was where we went to learn and study after high school. There weren't really universities, but there were sites of struggle for all of us. We actually were re-educated during the late 60s. And we grew up in the climate and the understanding of what liberating our minds from white-dominated oppression under the powerful force of Black consciousness. Steve Biko was one of the great leaders at that time. He was our hero. For many of us, you know, white was right. We were brought up in that state where, as young people, after the banning of organizations, there was complete oppression of the mind. And Black consciousness helped us to liberate our minds, to be strong from one extreme of thinking white people were all right, we became black power advocates. And we became mad with that anger. But it did break us free. And we were able to then understand what things like non-racialism was, that human beings were good and there were human beings that were bad, and color, religion, or race and culture didn't matter at the end of the day. You had to work your mind, understand the struggle, and evolve in such a way that you were able to make a better contribution than just race. And Black consciousness taught us that it wasn't to be truly Black conscious, you would then become truly non-racial. And that was something that for many people it was difficult to follow. But Steve Biko really left a legacy that hasn't been acknowledged in our country the way it should. It liberated us. It led to the kind of uprisings that helped to liberate our country, the 1976 uprisings. And it freed up a lot of our leaders who were able to mobilize the communities in the early 70s. And we had in Durban in particular, illegal strikes that took place, student uprisings, and the groundswell of resistance began to grow. There were political rallies that did take place in Durban, and important people spoke there, even though they may have differed with one another. It was something that was important to recognize. People like Baba Achi Gumede was amongst them, Mewa Ramgoben, Fatima Mir, Harriet Bolton, Alan Payton, and even Chief Mangasutu Buthelezi was at his height promoting his agenda and causing tensions and divisions along even tribal lines. And there were rough times, and people like Pius had to contend with colleagues of his who were called out by even, at that time, by Chief Buthelezi at the time. I remember lawyers engaged in the struggle in Durban, in the old Natal, in KwaZulu-Natal. A lot of them came from the Eastern Cape and were part of our lives and part of providing legal assistance. And the fact that they defended people who opposed the Bantustan system and the type of provincial governance that was going on in the old Natal, where Chief Buthelezi at that time was on the one hand saying he was fighting apartheid, but on the other hand he wanted a complete Zulu homeland. And it was a challenge because he claimed to speak in the name of the ANC. And people like Pius had to never compromise on their beliefs of a united democratic South Africa. And I remember there used to be threats made against our lawyers in Nadel who happened to come from the Eastern Cape, who were of Xhosa background. They were named in newspapers and threatened. People like Tembile Square, Griffiths and Playinga. The kind of environment and the fear that people lived under at that time was just unimaginable. Where they were then told, look, these Xhosa lawyers must go back to where they came from. It's important to see where Pius was and the work he had to do. And lawyers began to organize themselves throughout the country. In Durban, we formed the first of these lawyers' organizations called the Democratic Lawyers Association, DLA. And we formed it because the apartheid government built the new magistrates court in the early 70s. It was an edifice. The architects were brilliant apartheid architects. It was a building at that time, a massive one, the Durban Magistrates Court, and it had about 12 floors, but every entrance, there were 4 entrances, the front, back, and the side. Black people had to enter through the sides of the building. The white people were supposed to enter, and beautiful design, the best timber, but those barriers were there. And the lawyers, now people had to go and experience that type of justice, a white justice and a black justice, entrances for white people, separate entrances for black people in a court of law. Now, that was the Achilles heel of the white apartheid system, that you could then attack it. And we were young lawyers at that time. I think I just completed my articles, but I was working alongside all these giants, you know. There was Vuga Shabalala, there was Don Kali, Justice Poswa, all of them, and Pius Langa, Griffiths and Victoria Mxenge. The lawyers came together and they said, we will not enter that court through these racist entrances. We will go in through the main entrance, and our people must know we're fighting for one justice. And these magistrates must know that when people are separated in court, there is going to be a visible display of separate justice for white people and black people. So the lawyers exploited that. It went public. It was in the newspapers that we were going on a defiance campaign. And within a matter of time, it had quite a wide repercussion around the country and maybe elsewhere in the world too. And within a matter of days of the protests by our lawyers, the apartheid regime removed all of those barriers. They did not want their apartheid regimes to be so easily exposed as nothing more than a racial, oppressive machinery serving a vicious system of control over the majority of the people. And so that led to the formation of the Democratic Lawyers Association in Durban, and Pius Langa became one of its first presidents. And we were able to, with people like Dalla Omar in the Cape, Bradi, Demisa and Sebeza, judge of the African Court in the Eastern Cape. Bradi was instrumental in forming the Eastern Cape Democratic Lawyers Association. And in the Cape, yes, please. And this opposition just grew. The work that Pius had done in Durban, in the Cape, Dalla Omar, with people like Shiraz Desai, Judge Desai, and Johnny de Langa, and others, they formed the Democratic Lawyers Association. In Pietermaritzburg, Kader Hashim and others and young lawyers there formed the Lawyers for Justice. In Pretoria, Matole Mocheka, he formed the Democratic Lawyers Congress. And within a matter of a year or two, things developed. We were in a very racially divided society, and the politics in South Africa were complex. And the BLA then was formed. Now, I want people to understand, when we talk about the past history, it's not like where we are today. Our comrade, the SG of the BLA, talked about the unity between Nadel and BLA. This is this generation. But you've got to know where we came from. And the BLA at that time had an alignment with the Pan-African Congress movement. The DLA and all the new bodies that we formed that came together to launch Nadel in 1987 was very much the charterist organizations. We were unashamedly following the Freedom Charter, and we were aligned to the ANC. So during the 80s in particular, the political divisions in this country were very, very stark. They were tough, and boundaries were drawn. And when we formed Nadel, the Pius was central to arranging for a unification of all these groups. And we came together in 1986 here in the Eastern Cape at the Amatola Sun. And representatives from all these organizations that I mentioned, who are all resistance lawyers, struggle lawyers, not ordinary lawyers who are busy running with their practices, all lawyers who are engaged in defending the opponents of apartheid, the people who were arrested by the police and detained, and even combatants who came into the country and were arrested. So we needed to be a strong, united body in order to withstand the anger of the apartheid regime when they found out that things were happening under their noses. And a strong, united body of lawyers was essential to give support to the masses of the people, to give support to our liberation movements outside, and to send a message to the people inside that there will be lawyers to defend them, whatever happens. And so we came together in 1987, but we spent a whole year, and Brady will tell you, we had a steering committee and about 12 of us, Pius and I from Durban, Brady and someone else, I think Justice Pospa from the Eastern Cape, and we had BLA, we had different groups, and we formed a steering committee, and it took a year to put up a draft constitution because of the political divisions. Now, Nadel, BLA, DLA, DLC, all of us, we did not exist in a political vacuum in South Africa. We were part of a complex world, a world which was divided into what was broadly called the Cold War. You had the USSR on one side, the Soviet Union, and the United States, and their imperialists on the other side, with Europe joining them. And the Soviet Union was our ally. They gave the ANC support and gave them weapons. They gave them training through their various countries within that union. Nobody went for military training to the United States. It was simple as that. You knew where you stood. You knew where the United States stood. They stood behind the apartheid government, defended them at the United Nations through whatever countless resolutions. And it took a battle to declare that apartheid was a crime against humanity, just like the Palestinian struggle, which is still ongoing. But the power of the big nations was something that affected even us inside the country. There was China that gave support to the Pan-African Congress. There was the United States that gave support to the Pan-African Congress. So in that Cold War, we in South Africa felt the same effects inside. And when we went into the launch of Nadel, there were divisions. We had the Charterists and the ANC group on one side, and the rest, all the rest, the PAC, the people who supported even the Black Consciousness movement, the non-European unity movement, as it was called, NEUM. All of them formed one group. And we had people like Dikgang Moseneke there, who was symbolic of that leadership. And on the other side was Pius Langa, who was part of the Charterist group, with Dalla Omar, and all of us behind him, behind them. And so when we launched Nadel, it was a tension-filled launch, uniting different ideological groupings and bringing people together for the sake of serving our country and the struggle. And it was simple to say you can't bring your ideological battles of the left, whether you want to be a Marxist organization or a nationalistic organization or a black or a white, but we had to unite in order to confront the common enemy. So apartheid united us there, and Nadel was launched. But there was still a lot of tensions there. The first president of Nadel, the National Association of Democratic Lawyers, was Brady, Dumisa and Sebeza. Believe it or not. He beat Pius Langa for the elections. And we were all very disappointed. Disappointment is an understatement. We were devastated. We organized that conference in Durban. We put it all together, got everybody in. The BLA was able to fly down 100 delegates. They outnumbered us, they outmaneuvered us, they had a political strategy. We came there like poor lawyers, from different parts of the country, 3 from here, 3 from there, but we had branches all over the country. But the BLA was so strong in Johannesburg. They were big. They had a smaller number in Durban. And with those 2 groups, I remember the voting was something like 120 votes for Brady and about 90 for Pius. And but they came and they conquered. And Nadel went forward with a fractious organization, divided, but we went forward, but we could not settle that constitution. And we adjourned after and said, let's elect. I know I stood for election as a Secretary General. Now, once you lost with Pius, you knew which way the numbers went. So I lost by 106 votes to 104. So I got a little more than Pius, maybe because I may have been not a big threat like Pius was. But we lost all. The only position that was unanimous was that of Dalla Omar. Now, Dalla Omar came from a unity movement background in Cape Town, and Judge Shiraz Desai, if he's around, will know. He left the unity movement and joined the Charterists, the ANC, the UDF, and he was not forgiven for that. However, Dalla Omar was elected as a vice president, so he was, I think the BLA was kind. They said, let's give them Dalla without any opposition, because they got the presidency. Brady was still one of us, as we believed, from the Congress movement, but they loved him. All the other fractious groups united and said, let's put Brady up, so there'll be less of a friction than having Dikgang Moseneke standing as president. But whatever the tactics was, it worked. So we spent the next year in Nadel trying to settle the constitution. And the argument was a simple one. Do you have a constituent assembly to elect your members to the various positions in the organization? So in other words, a proportionate representation. So if you had 50 members in Durban, you'd come with 5 delegates. If you had 20 in Pietermaritzburg, you'd come with 2 delegates. You can add 1 for each branch. That was the constitution that we fought for as a Charterists, as an ANC. And we had branches all over the country, but we didn't have the money to fly 100 people from Cape Town to beat at an AGM and play the numbers game. But we fought for that principle. So we spent about 8 months, and Dalla at all those meetings would say, we must stay united. And we were saying, no, the BLA has got to go its own way, and we've got to go our way, so that we can carry on with our programs. They will have a program to take the struggle forward, and we would have one as well. And we'll fight side by side, but not fight each other all the time. And at one of those meetings, after 8 months, Dalla was busy in Cape Town, he didn't come. We were able to say, now we can do something. We had a chat with Dikgang. Dikgang, it was in Pietermaritzburg. And he said, yes, we're going to have to go our own ways, but we'll meet somewhere along the line, because we had the numbers, we had the branches, and we wanted that constitution to be such that it would enable us to speak in one voice throughout the country and come to an AGM with the voices properly represented from all our different branches, as it were. And that's how our constitution was adopted. So the first proper Nadel AGM took place in Cape Town, and Pius Langa was the first United Nadel president. And that's how Nadel came into being. I happened to be the first general secretary, and I had worked with Pius along all the way, with Dalla. And Dalla was the vice president. Johnny de Langa was the assistant secretary general. And we had an organization that never looked back. We had an organization that worked closely with the people. And I want to tell you the things that Pius did, having a full organization totally behind him. He had a vision. And program directors, if I'm taking too long, just signal me. But this is rich history that I want to share with you. You know, he was able to, he had a vision with Dalla Omar. So we launched in 1987, Nadel, even while the BLA held control of Nadel for the year 87. Pius had links with the ANC. Dala had links with the ANC. We were very powerful outside. We couldn't say that openly, but there was an international conference that was held in Harare in 1987. Pius was central to that. Bishop Trevor Huddleston from Britain was there. They organized an international conference on the brutality of the apartheid system against the children in South Africa, specifically what took place after 1976 to the students in the schools, and the detention of children that was still ongoing, very much like what's been going on in Palestine. But we had the kind of organization that Pius had set up. And that conference in Harare was opened by President Mugabe. It had powerful people. President O.R. Tambo was there. Thabo Mbeki, Jacob Zuma. It was a big thing. We were part of, as Nadel, with a band organization. Brady was still the president of Nadel at that time. And he was one of the speakers at one of those sessions. And we had private meetings with the leadership of the ANC from outside in some of those rooms during the conference. And I remember one of the things that came out very strongly from Comrade OR was that, look, guys, you guys are inside, you've got links to the community, but this necklacing of people is unacceptable. It is a horrific thing. You might be dealing with your own challenges of informers and enemies and spies, but there are different ways of dealing with people. And it was a directive. And that was one of the things Pius and Comrade Dala together ensured that when we came back, this message went throughout the country. And the necklacing did come to a stop. There were the odd sporadic incidents. There were some difficulties to try to convince Comrade Winnie Mandela to toe the line. But Pius did a lot of work. And we were able to turn a lot of things around. That was Pius's work. Although he wasn't the president of Nadel, he was still our leader, and he was committed and brave, and he did lots of important work. Then in 1988, after we took back Nadel as our own united charterists, internal wing, legal wing of the ANC as it was at that time, we had a meeting in 1988 that Pius arranged with the ANC legal department in Lusaka. And so there were about 12 of us who went there. Johnny de Langa, of course, Pius led the delegation. Dala couldn't travel. He was denied a passport all his life before 94. And so there were about a dozen of us who went. We met with the ANC legal department. We strategized about a lot of things. And at that time, to go and meet with the ANC outside, it was not done. There were private discussions going on with certain people, but the ANC and Nadel, we went. When we came back, of course, we were a bit nervous, but that was the courage of Pius. That was a leadership that he gave with Dala. And we went and we strategized about a great number of things. And we met, I remember, people like Steve Schwete, Comrade Chris Hani. He took us to his little home. And I remember some of the ANC people there showing us the AK-47. And, you know, they had to have that for their protection there because they were under threat from the apartheid regime, the South African Defense Force, and all the agents that were attacking all over the place. So that was a meeting in 1988. In 1989, Pius arranged a trip for our Nadel lawyers to Sweden. And we went there on a 2-week course to understand and learn about their constitution. Pius had done a lot of work. He had embarked on trips as well to study not study, but to expose himself to the Canadian system, their constitution, the Indian government. But this was a special delegation that we went on to Sweden, and Pius didn't come along, but Silas and Kanunu, one of our stalwarts, our late stalwart, was the leader of our delegation. And I think, if I recall, amongst them was also Comrade Prince Madikizela, who was from Bizana. And so we had Phumzile Majeke, the real lot of legends from this area, from this province, and Zoimbele from KZN. And so we learned a great deal about constitutional values, the Swedish system, the ombud. The idea of a public protector came from that study. And when we brought back all that information, it gave rise to some of the concepts that the Swedish system had. About parole, we were shocked. We went to prisons to visit young juvenile prisons, where it was shocking to us to see prisoners leaving on a Friday to go home, to be with their families, and come back on Monday and report back for prison. It was a wonderful, and it works there. It works there. And the idea of rehabilitation, they showed us the equipment that they had in the prisons, the training they were giving every prisoner. That was a place where we talked about true rehabilitation. We came back with lots of those ideas. Unfortunately, some of them were put in place slowly, others we just couldn't get to. And we still haven't got to a better prison system. Our prisons are really, nowadays, they're becoming a refuge for the hungry and the poor. I mean, I was listening to the radio 2 days ago, and the guy says, look, I know my friends, there's no food at home. He'd rather commit the crime and get into prison. He's taken care of at home. He doesn't have to worry about things. This cannot be the society that we want in our country. It just cannot be. But, so we've got a lot of work to do in so many respects. But anyway, we came back from that trip with lots of ideas, some of which were implemented. They gave rise to some of our constitutional values. And the Swedish government at that time, the Social Democratic Party, were fantastic human beings. They are soft-spoken. They don't show any anger. If you think about this guy Bjorn Borg and Stefan Edberg, the way they played tennis, while this boorish, wild McEnroe will be in the tennis court, smashing his racket, insulting the umpire. But this was the Swedish culture, the Swedish calmness, and their commitment to humanity. The ANC had diplomatic recognition in Sweden. No South African government could be anywhere near them. Just like the government in India. You could not travel on a South African passport or apartheid passport anywhere near India, or Sweden for that matter. So you had that kind of support. And then in 1989, again, Pius organized a delegation to go and observe the elections in Namibia. This was a powerful thing leading to our independence. And the Angolan army, the MPLA, was on the borders, and they had smashed the SANDF with the Cuban forces, our comrades from Cuba, they lost 10,000 people, soldiers. We don't understand those numbers. In 1989, the Battle of Coito Carnavale was a turning point which showed up the weaknesses of the SADF and the fact that their Mirages couldn't match the MiG fighters of the Soviet Union, our brothers in Russia then. And we observed the elections in Namibia under UN oversight. And our lawyers from Nadel went through every important outpost, giving support to basically SWAPO and ensuring that the whites who had full control, especially the farmers, who were bringing their workers to the election site. So it was a whole week of voting, slow but sure. My friend and comrade then, Judge Thamba Pillay from Durban, and we ended up in an area called Damaraland. I know we're running short of time, but that was Namibia and Pius's work in setting up that delegation that went there. In 1990, there was a second delegation of Nadel lawyers that went to Cuba under the leadership again of Silas and Kanunu. 1991 to 94 was Pius, Codesa, Dalla, and Pius even trying to form a patriotic front inside South Africa along the lines of what happened in Zimbabwe. And I remember Dikgang Moseneke and Pius coming together in a meeting in Durban with a whole lot of lawyers and groups and trying to get a united front within South Africa after 1990 to unite and to ensure that the Codesa negotiations went forth in a unified way. 1996, Nadel was still doing observer work at elections in Palestine. And I can give you a story about that, but time doesn't permit. 1997 was a TRC and a lot of nervousness about our legal structures and the judiciary. I had made statements before the TRC, and Brady may remember we were under pressure, and I put up a submission to the TRC saying that the foot soldiers appearing before the TRC was not enough. The leadership, and speaking as a lawyer, I said that the structure that gave credibility for the apartheid system was the legal system, that they wanted to give credence to their judgments, to say we had a wonderful judicial system, whatever else was wrong, but we gave everybody a fair trial, which was a lie. And those judges and the attorneys general, I had argued that they are the ones that had to appear before the TRC. I know Pius was a bit nervous because this was now 1997. We had come out, we are reconciling, we're causing a bit of a ruction. We're going to maybe undermine the unity, the government of national unity at that time. And there were calls then made to Madiba to say, leave the judiciary alone. You might cause problems for us. And the judiciary made representations. I don't know, at that time, George Bezos, I didn't quite agree with him then. He was one of them that said, no, there were good judges, white judges, so you can't sort of tarnish the whole of the white judiciary and whatever. But that was not right as far as I'm concerned. But I agreed with it, and it was important. Madiba's vision was more important than trying to score a point or two and try to break what was the bigger battle for unity and reconciliation. So Pius was right. I differed with him at times on these things, but he was right. He sent messages when I was the press secretary to cool it a bit. Don't overdo this. Madiba himself was also concerned. And I remember he phoned my office one day to greet and say, how are you? And, I understand. But, when Madiba calls you, there's a purpose there. So Pius went on to become a judge in the Constitutional Court, and all his fine work is recorded in lots of documents, judgments, and so on. So, Comrade Machini, give me 2 minutes to just talk a little bit about the future. Okay. The future that we see now in this world is a very, very tough one. We have existential threats, and believe it or not, the nuclear threat is there all the time. There are countries that are being run by maniacs, people who are prepared to sacrifice their population in order to win a particular battle, and it's largely a right-wing cause. And there are people with power and ability to press a button. And remember, Israel has dozens of bombs. I mean, there is no way anybody is going to stop Israel from obliterating Gaza, from obliterating the Palestinians. They will do whatever they want in the West Bank. That is how serious and how bad the existential threat to our world stands. Because on the other side, somebody in one of the other countries, like Pakistan, which has nuclear bombs, India has some nuclear bombs, some maniac is going to steal a plane, put a bomb, or do something, and if one bomb goes off, there's going to be a typical nuclear reaction. And these are concerns that we in South Africa must take into account when we talk about the future of our democracy. Because if South Africa's democracy fails, I can tell you it will have a ripple effect in many parts of the world, as the US has failed as a democracy. We also have to worry about Black economic empowerment in South Africa for our young, growing lawyers who got very little hope of survival. So BEE must be seen as a progressive weapon for us to empower our lawyers, not as a means for accumulation of wealth so that we have a super elite and the Gini coefficient being the worst in the world in terms of levels of inequality, 30 years after our democracy. We must also ask for data democracy. There must be access to free data as far as possible in the rural areas and all the universities, all places of learning. It must be a total demand, and Nadel must take up the cudgels. We can afford to give free data everywhere because access to information means access to power, access to get justice, access to justice before your access to power. We must also look at our constitution, which was drawn up in 1994, 96. There are things there that we should be able to criticize and even consider to tighten up. The land issues need to be properly looked at. Even if the words have to be strengthened, we have to look at our system of justice. Believe it or not, the European system of the right to silence is wrong. You can take me on that anytime. I believe our African systems in Africa of Ubuntu, of what our Gogos, our grandmothers, our parents used to teach us. If you stole something, you came and you accounted for it. You didn't have the right to remain silent. The culture of Ubuntu means you put right. You know, even during the state of emergency, in the townships, we had people's courts. where if you stole, the people's courts came in, they did beat you up too and give you a hiding, but you had to, reparation was the first thing. You had to go and apologize. You had to make good what you did wrong. And we must be able to do things that can change our system of laws in this country in a progressive and dynamic way. I apologize. This was supposed to be Pius Langa's memorial lecture, but it is a Nadel position. As you said, Mslagazi, when you tell someone you're going to do that, that's what we want. And this is Nadel. And Pius, your spirit is with us. Dala, your spirit is with us. Silas and Kanunu, Patrick Jaji, all from this region, your spirits are with us. We can reach and touch it. I'm not speaking like the high priest, like Mokweng, but his spirit is with us. All of their spirits are with us today. Thank you, comrade.
Thank you, everyone. Did Comrade Raj say he was controversial? Okay, I think we will ask for music and maybe have 5-minute comfort break before we go to our panel discussion. Thank you.